Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Sustainable Commodities podcast, a podcast to help people navigate the ever-changing world of sustainability and sustainable commodities. I'm Barnaby Patchett, MD of 199 Agency, a marketing agency working in sustainability, and with me...
Hi, it's Judith Murdoch from Murdoch Associates, and we focus in forest risk commodities.
And in this episode, we're going to take a break from talking about EUDR and palm oil, and we're going to be talking about nuts. Our guest today is Dan Binks, the Managing Director of Liberation Foods, the UK's only Fairtrade, farmer-owned nut company.
So Dan, thanks, hi and welcome. Just to start us off, what is your business all about?
Oh, Liberation Foods is a Fairtrade nut company. It's a community of interest company, which basically means that we have a community of interest across the world. Our community of interest are global, worldwide smallholder farmers, and whatever they do. The business traditionally was set up to concentrate on nuts, but we were also set up as a food business. So we're looking to not just trade in nuts, but also to trade in other commodities as well.
Great. And I understand that the structure of your business is a little bit different. One of the big challenges in sustainability at the moment is smallholder inclusion. How are you managing that at Liberation?
Oh well, smallholder farmers actually play a significant part in our business. So I mentioned that we're a community of interest company. Well, our community of interest company is actually limited by shares. And the interesting thing about Liberation is that, or I believe the interesting thing about Liberation is that 50% of our shares are actually owned by smallholder farmers from across the world. So they get a significant say in how our business is run. They got representation on our board, and they also get a share of the profits when we're in profit.
Great. Okay. So in essence, you're treating your smallholders, your farmers, as entrepreneurs.
Yes, they are entrepreneurs, and they're the lifeline and the bloodline of the business. Without them, we wouldn't exist. And I dare say that without us, they might not exist either. So it's like a complementary mutual relationship that we have.
Great. Yeah, and whereabouts in the world are they based? Where are you growing?
So we do a lot of work out of Latin America. So we have Nicaragua. We work closely with Nicaragua on peanuts. We have Bolivia, where we're actually purchasing Brazil nuts from. We have India, where we're purchasing cashews. We also purchase cashews in West Africa, specifically Burkina Faso. And we've done some work previously with Malawi.
So one of the things on smallholders and some of the biggest issues that maybe smallholders face is what would you classify as a smallholder? So I'm thinking some of the big commodities where, a smallholder must be farming something, say, above 4 hectares. What does your typical smallholder look like?
Well, typically, we like the smallholders to be between 2 and 5 acres, large farms. Totally different to the industrial agricultural sector. So the small guys that we work with will be they'll be biodiverse. They'll be growing more than just the commodity we're buying from them. In fact, I can point to some examples across the world. So I met a farmer in India a couple of years ago who had 2 acres worth of land in the Western Gap Mountains, and he was growing over 200 different commodities.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a big number.
Big number, and it's almost like it's like a carbon sink as well. So you imagine such a diverse piece of land. They're able to sustain their family So they eat off the land. They're able to sustain their local community because they sell through local community shops, and then they've got the cash crop that comes out to liberation.
And how do you communicate with them? Because that is, again, some of the difficulties. People talk about smallholders. Well, not everyone can afford a mobile phone. Obviously we set our standards by what we see. So how do you communicate with them?
Well, the smallholder farmers that we work with, they're all organised into cooperatives or associations or some other kind of legal entity where they're actually cooperating together. So the Indian example that I just cited to you, the member farmer is actually a member of a co-op of around 3,500 other smallholder farmers, which come together and they're able to produce on a small scale, each one, and they're able to accumulate their commodities at a central location, and then that gets sold to the market.
That's pretty impressive. Biodiversity and nature, again, over this last year, that is something that's really coming to the fore. And you obviously touched on that. Is there a standard that they have to be at to be involved with you, or do you just find it naturally happens?
So, I mean, we've always been a fair trade business, and basically that means that we purchase and sell on fair trade basis. It means that the farmers that we work with get a full and fair price for the commodities they grow and sell to us. But it does mean that trading on those terms, it means that they actually need to be fair trade or what we call flow certified themselves.
What does that involve?
That will involve an application to the certifying body. So in this case, it's Flow Cert, and then it will be an annual audit. I mean, it's more complex than that, but in essence, that's what it is. And then as part of the audit process, the co-op will host an audit, and each farmer will have its transactions checked. So it's quite important that they're very sort of clear and visible with what they're doing, what they're selling through the co-op each year.
Yeah.
Is it quite expensive for them to take part?
It can be. Yeah, it can be. So in order to get up to they need to be selling at a certain amount for it to be viable for them to continue the process. So it's several thousand euros per year for to maintain certification. But it goes further than that because there is an ongoing cost of certification to cooperatives, and that's where agriculture extension officers get involved. And it's the ongoing process of actually ensuring that each farm member is actually remaining compliant to the certification, which actually adds the majority of the cost. We've worked on projects before in Mozambique where we were where sadly the cooperative decided to decertify from Flow because it was basically costing too much, and what we worked out as part of that process was that they had something like 5,000 farms sprung across a large geographical area, and actually just getting out to each farm location and sort of ensuring that each farm was maintaining certification was costing 25,000 odd euros per year, and that's without the cost of certification. And the group really needed to be able to sell containers of products per year and have scale of production before it was worthwhile them actually reconsidering to recertify.
Yeah, and traceability. I'm guessing that because it's cooperatives that it all gets mixed, but you do have a level of traceability. I mean, obviously not part of the EUDR and the geolocation, but if that's the nature of direction of business, do you think that is possible, or is traceability going to be more of a mass balance?
No, we try to work on fully traceable system. So we're able to actually trace product back to not individual farmer, but to individual collection centre. So the way a cooperative model would typically work is that you'd have sort of like I would guess a second level, let's call it a second level co-op, which is like the umbrella union, I suppose. And then underneath that, you'd have maybe 5, 6, 7 regional cooperatives. And each one of those regional cooperatives would have a collection point which may have 10, 15, 20, 30 farmer members delivering into that collection point. So our traceability system allows us to actually trace back down to the collection point, but not beyond. I mean, it would be impossible, I think, to...
Yeah. But it's still pretty good when you're considering, the amount of smallholders and how difficult that actually is. So, yeah, I could imagine that's
a big challenge, yeah.
It's a big challenge, but it's all in the way that the co-ops organise themselves, and they're really good entrepreneurial business people. They understand what they need to do. They keep good records, and it works. It just works for us. So it's great to be able to talk to the industry, as that's a point of difference for ourselves.
So you mentioned that. What are the big sustainability issues facing the industry? How do they compare to other commodities?
Right. So if we compare to, it might be easier to sort of cite an example. So I'll go to peanuts as an example. So there's lots and lots of massive peanut farms across the world. In fact, in the States, you might need a tractor to drive across your farm, and it might take you 10 minutes to get from one side to the other. And we got massive farms across the world like that, where they're just intensively growing one crop on the ground year after year after year after year, not introducing any biodiversity. And basically that then that's got an environmental impact, of course. It means that the quality of the soil degrades over time, and it actually invites sort of pest infestation and what have you. And large scale farms then need to actually use harmful chemical pesticides and what have you to actually maintain the quality of the crop. Whereas on a small peanut farm with 2 or 3 acres, you'll probably find that they are intercropping. They're probably rotating the crop each year with another type of crop. So I can go to I know a farm in Nicaragua, for example, where they're growing sesame on part of the land, on an acre of land, one year, and then the following year they'll swap it over with peanuts and vice versa. And then in the meantime, they've got other crops around growing. So and it's really good and nourishing for the earth.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think these farmers are well recognised? I mean, you're talking about large farms. I mean, do you think they have a competitive edge with doing what they do and doing what you're doing?
Well, they got scale of production basically, and they're able to actually sell all their commodity into the market at whichever price they can sell it for, and because they've got so much of it, they've always got the income coming into their farm to sustain their living, and we'll find commodity coming out to the market at very, very low price, and it makes it extremely competitive for our smallholder model to actually get involved with, whereas with us and our farmers, our biggest challenge is actually being able to get in there and compete on price, because we got a different model. But our model brings the advantage of knowing that smallholder farmers across the world are getting a full and fair price for their commodity, and they're actually looking after and nurturing the land.
Yeah, I think biodiversity and nature is massive. It sounds a wonderful story. Do you find that when you maybe bring it to market that people think about biodiversity first, or do you think buyers think price first?
there's always a question about price. Commercial reality really. I guess even more so at the moment because with the cost of living crisis that we've had in the UK particularly, and across Europe, many parts of the world actually, in the last couple of years, we're finding that people sort of move away from, I don't even call it a luxury item, but they do move away from things like nuts or tree nuts because they are vastly more expensive than sort of staple things that you'd put into your shopping basket. So challenge we've got is that nuts are not a front basket item, not for the mainstream population. It's like a secondary item that you pick up if you would like to have some, but you don't necessarily need them for your everyday diet.
Mm.
So what does that mean in terms of the future? Are you looking to diversify your offering? Are you relying on the kind of the sustainability credentials of the brand? Because am I right in thinking that you also white label?
Yes, we are. Yeah. So at the moment, our business is predominantly white label. Mm-hmm. We sell to UK retailers, and we also got several European private label customers that we sell to as well, and that makes up roughly 85-90% of our business, and then the rest of our business is made up of brand and what we call bulk sales. It's just the way that the business has sort of grown over the years. We have an ambition now to actually make the brand 50% of our business, and if you take a moment of pause, you'll probably start thinking, well, actually, you need to double the size of your business. Yes, we do. We need to double the size of our business, and we would like that double size to be in actually brand sales, which is where we're getting most of our value.
Yeah. Which are the most difficult countries to deal with? Then, just changing the subject and thinking about the market that you deal with. Are they all? Do they all have certain issues?
Everybody's got certain issue. Everybody's got some kind of issue. It's the world that we live in, really. I think probably from an operational point of view, getting Brazil nuts in and out of the Amazon jungle is probably the most challenging part, especially when we're trading with a country which is landlocked. It's got no sea border and what have you, and not only has it got rainforest to navigate, but it's then got high mountains to navigate before you can even get out to the coast to get on a boat to get over to the UK. So I think that's probably the most challenging area of the world to actually deal with. But everybody's got their own sort of issues, I guess.
Going back to the sustainability side, how important? My understanding is obviously water is incredibly important to tree nuts. How are things changing on that front in terms of things like climate change? How are things being affected?
Well, all the farmer cooperatives tell me that they're actually they're worried about climate change, that it has an effect on them year after year. We get examples from India, for example. The farmers used to be able to set their date clock based on the monsoon season coming along, and they can no longer do that. So it used to be that every year on the dot, 1st of June, it'll be monsoon season. It would last for 3 or 4 months, but now the rains might come 2 weeks early or 3 weeks late or a month late, and it's just changed. And of course, when you're actually relying on the climate to actually grow and plan your commodities, it becomes really quite challenging. You get the rains at the wrong time with certain crops, for example, say peanuts. If you get the rains at the wrong time, then the peanut crop becomes affected by something called aflatoxin, which gets into the food chain, and then the commodity can become unsaleable.
Right. Yeah. And just out of interest, nuts are just an annual crop, aren't they? Or are some nuts, peanuts, are they just an annual crop?
Yeah. So the peanut crop is about 130 days long. So in Nicaragua, it gets planted in July and it's harvested around November time, and that's it then for the season. And then they'll replant again in July.
Yeah.
In the meantime, they're growing, in our model, they're growing other things on the land during the period where the ground is empty, has been empty to peanuts.
Yeah,
Nice.
because I think that's always a bit of a surprise. What's coming from a tree or what's coming from a plant as a nut. So yeah, it's different things.
What does the future look like? And we've mentioned some of the kind of uncertainties, but what the future? So what progress is happening on sustainability in nuts? What still needs to happen, and what would you like to see?
Let's see. I think probably the liberation and the direction that we're going in, we're trying to, so our aim is actually to not just make our own business fully sustainable for the future, but to also make the businesses of the farmer organizations that we work with sustainable as well. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways in which we've identified we can do that is to actually add as much value to products at the farmer end of the supply chain as possible. So in that, I mean, currently, or we work with a model to date where we will ship commodity in from country of origin. We will then, we might roast it or crush it into butter or pack it into retail and branded packaging. And we sell it out through, and that's done in Europe, and we sell it out through the UK and Europe. Now, one of the things that we've been looking at and we've started to do in the last year or so is actually get that value add that we do in Europe and the UK back to country of origin. So this year, for the first time, we shipped a fully packed and finished Liberation branded product directly from India. And the advantage of doing that was that the farmer organisation were able to just give us a price for commodity for the packed products, and we just had to go out and sell it. There was no negotiation at all. So they, in other words, they managed to get the value that they needed for the product. Yeah. And I can see ways in which we can develop this and help many organisations across the world to actually be more sustainable.
That sounds great. Yeah. And in terms of kind of, what about legislation? Is there any legislation that's coming along that's going to impact on your industry, or anything that you would particularly like to see?
Well, we've been exempt from EUDR, which is brilliant. At the moment, there's nothing that I can see coming down the road which is actually going to hinder us going forward. But we don't know. I mean, it depends. We don't know what the government's going to do next, do we? Really?
No, none of us.
None of us do. So, I don't know. For the moment, I think it seems to be full steam ahead on everything, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And do you think nuts cause deforestation? Because that is one of the big focuses on the environment as a crop. Just general terms, is there deforestation? No, I mean, you get nut trees and crops, nut crops into the ground and nut trees up, and they last years before they actually need to be replanted. So cashew tree, for example, you plant on day 0, it produces fruit by year 3 or 4, and then it can keep producing fruit and nut until around 35 years later. So there's a really good, long-lasting, hardy crop. Mm. And the biodiversity, as you've already described, sounds really good. What about other social risks? Certainly smallholders are a big thing, but are there any other additional social risks involved?
Yeah, I guess I guess probably the one thing I could point to would be the farmers we consider are protected. Fairtrade standards protects them somewhat.
Yeah.
social risk. But then when you actually go upstream, so you go toward, so they process the primary nut, or the raw nut will get processed in country of origin into something which is edible. So the nuts are cracked or what have you. That's probably the place in the chain where you've got to be most acutely aware of what's going on. So the processes aren't vetted in the same way as what the farmers are. And it's our job as Liberation to actually make sure we get out to the process as well as the farmers, and sort of vet the processes and make sure that they're actually they're protecting their workers, that they are that they don't have any unlawful working practices, that everybody's safe, etc., etc. So I guess that in the supply chain, that's probably the high risk point, I would say.
Yeah, which is in many industries, that's the same. That is the same. Yeah. No, definitely.
And so you mentioned one last question, I think, on certification. Obviously, you've got Fairtrade. How valuable is that to you?
But it's been the core of our business forever, ever.
Yeah.
Yes, Fairtrade is important to us because it's a standard which shows the rest of the world that we're operating to a certain standard, that we are actually delivering fairly traded products, and that farmers at the smallholder farmers at the other end of the supply chain are actually getting full and fair value for their work. So it is important. We could go broader. We could decide that potentially we do stuff without the certification attached to the product. So I'm not suggesting for a moment that we drop fair trade, but it could be that we decide to ethically trade something instead with a farmer organisation. But we would need to make sure that they were sustaining their business, and that they were actually benefiting from the work they were doing with them before we actually went ahead and did something like that.
And the advantage, I guess, with the fair trade is of the certifications, it is the one that consumers understand probably best.
It is the mark. It is the mark that everybody understands best in the UK. You know, there are other fair trade marks out there, such as SPP, which is Small Producers Partnership. That's more of a Latin American thing, but it's used quite heavily in France, I believe. There's also World Fair Trade, WFTO. That's an alternative fair trade standard, which you see that fairly commonly across Europe as well. And then you got the Max Havelaar, or the Fair Trade Foundation, that we use. But we find that in the UK market, at least, it's the Max Havelaar / Fair Trade logo that everybody understands. That's what they know.
Yeah, because that's definitely, if consumers have an understanding what they're buying, that is a huge tick. Certification is very difficult in some other commodities, as we well know, don't we? But
it is. I mean, what the ambition from, I've always thought about it as I would love to get to a stage where Liberation brand on the shelf, and the consumer doesn't even look for the fair trade logo, because it's kind of it's Liberation, right? We know it's going to be treated, the farmers are going to be treated fairly, and it's an ethical product, and we're trying to build a brand image around that, so that the fair trade logo doesn't become front and center. It's there to show that we're certified, but it's not the go-to thing for the consumer.
That's the third party. That's the auditing. That's the third party endorsement, but the brand carries the value.
Yeah, the brand carrying the value. Yeah.
And I think that's. I guess with fair trade would add to your brand at any point. With some of the other certifications, you'd need that anyway. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the value anyway.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And we also carry organic certification as well. So some of our products are fair trade and organic. So we support Soil Association in the UK. And we've been members of them since I think 2008, 9, something like that. And then fair trade.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. Dan. Great to speak to you and great to learn more about some of the sustainability issues surrounding nuts. And thank you for listening to the Sustainable Commodities podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.